Rants, like and subscribe. Alright, we're back with a part 2 of the Mount Rushmore of the sitcom Sneakerheads. Rants really appreciate all of the feedback he got on the first video, right? Loved all the comments, right? But we're back for a part 2, and it's not even a Mount Rushmore anymore, right? We're just having a countdown at this point, I guess, right? I guess it's safe to say that, right? And if you guys can recall, in part 1, we ranked Jerry Seinfeld, Martin Payne, Will Smith, Marlon Williams, and Dwayne Wayne, right? And somehow out of that, Marlon Williams, a man who spent most of the Wayans brothers sitcom unemployed and just standing around his brother's newsstand, he walked away with the crown, right? Not because he had the most money, not because he had the most successful career. No. See, Marlon represented the complete sneakerhead experience. Great shoes, great outfits, and absolutely no financial justification for owning any of it, right? And after that video, I discovered another group of sitcom characters walking around in original release Nikes, Jordans, Reeboks, and other classic sneakers. So today we're doing a part 2. And just like before, I'm not ranking these characters strictly by who owned the most expensive shoes. I'm judging the collection, variety, consistency, personal style, and how naturally the sneakers connected to the character. When you look at these characters, you gotta ask these questions like, did the person actually look like a sneakerhead, or did the wardrobe department simply give them a good pair of shoes? See, there's a difference. I'm also focusing primarily on what these characters wore during their actual shows. See, that rule is extremely important because one person on this list has a graphic, right, that tries to sneak several modern Jordan releases into a sitcom that ended in the 90s. And don't worry. We'll discuss that, right? But we have 9 entries this time, including 2 entire sitcom casts being judged collectively, right? So, let's begin with number 9, right? And number 9, the Friends cast. Yes, the cast of Friends, the sitcom, right? I don't even know if you guys even watch this show. I don't know. Okay. The boom 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 boom. I'll be there for you. You probably only remember that, and when you saw that, you probably turned the channel. And I'm not judging you. I'm not mad, right? But before anybody gets upset, Friends had sneakers, okay? The cast wore, Air Max 96s, Air Max 98s, the Air Max Tailwind 3s, Zoom Flight 95s, the Air Sensations, Air Tech Challenges 2s. Nike even produced a rare Friends promotional shoe based on the Air Edge for the show's second season. So there was definitely quote-unquote heat on the screen, right? But here's the problem. Which one was the sneakerhead? Exactly, right? See, because there's a collection spread across 6 different characters over 10 seasons, right? And that's not one sneakerhead. That's an entire apartment sharing a rotation. See, if 6 people wear 6 good shoes, I can't treat them like one person owning all 6 pairs, right? Clearly, you're not on Will Smith's level. No, right? Ross, he supposedly had quiet heat, but even that phrase tells you everything. Quiet heat. See, a true sneakerhead, they don't have quiet heat for 10 seasons. At some point, the shoes is going to become that character's image, okay? So while people remember Ross, they remember dinosaurs, they remember divorces, okay? Like, people remember that stuff too, but nobody remember those brave blue Jordan 13 lows. I tell you that. God damn it. Man, can I get an amen? Seriously, like, don't nobody remember this. I almost want to curse, man, because I get passionate with this. And I know Barry Baines is like, yeah, I'm glad this is the last on the list. Like, I don't even know why you mentioning this, Rants. Like, yeah, I had to, though, bro. I had to. I know how you feeling, man. But yeah, don't nobody remember these. And they look crazy on his feet, right? You know? Joey probably had the most natural sneakerhead energy, right? Because he was into sports, he dressed casually, he stayed financially unstable, right? Joey spending his final acting check on sneakers would have probably made some sense, right? But the graphic represents the entire cast, and collectively, Friends feels more like a Nike product placement rather than the sneakerhead culture, right? They had the shoes, but the shoes didn't define them. That's why Friends comes in at number 9, right? Number 8, Brad Taylor from Home Improvement. Yeah, I never liked this character. Oh my goodness, I shouldn't even be saying this. I don't like him. Okay, don't know this guy personally. Never liked him in anything that he was in. Okay, don't like him. All right, okay, but his rotation is strong. I cannot deny this little boy's rotation, right? He wore the white infrared and the black infrared Jordan 6s. He had the penny 2s, them diamond turfs, them Dions, the Air Tech Challenge 4s, them Nike Air Warp Speeds. Serious heat for somebody whose father spent most of the show damaging household appliances. His father was on TV, right? Brad's collection also made sense because he was an athlete of the family, right? If I'm not mistaken, he played soccer, he worked out, he dressed like a suburban teenage athlete in the 90s, right? But see, that's also why he ranks low too. See, what you get praised for, you can also be punished for too. It's funny how life works out like that, right? See, because Brad wore good sneakers, but he didn't necessarily style them. Most of the time he had on baggy jeans and oversized sweatshirt, whatever Nike basketball shoe the wardrobe department placed underneath it. The shoes were authentic to the period, but Brad wasn't influencing anybody's fashion. Nobody walked into school Monday morning saying, yeah, I need that Brad Taylor outfit from Home Improvement. He looked like every kid you saw waiting on a school bus in 95, just wearing them shoes because his mother got them for him. Or father. We have to include fathers, right? But sometimes the most realistic television wardrobes are the least memorable because the accuracy represents what regular people wore. Brad had heat, right? But he didn't have that sneakerhead personality. Like, in all actuality, Brad Taylor was just an athlete who happened to receive great shoes, and that places Brad Taylor at number 8. Number 7, Corey Matthews from Boy Meets World. Okay? Corey wore the Bugs Bunny Air Jordan 8s till he couldn't anymore, right? We'll get on that, right? He also had the olive Air Jordan 9s, Nike Air Tailwinds, the Air Maestro Flights, some Charles Barkley Air Max 2s, the CB94s. He was doing his thing, right? The Barkleys appeared across several episodes, right? But the Bugs Bunny 8s, right? They showed up repeatedly during that first season. He wore these shoes to the ground, right? But see, Corey has the same problem as Brad Taylor. And I'll award Corey the consistency for running those Bugs Bunny 8s in the ground. That's why he's ahead, right? But the shoes were better than the person wearing them. I mean, I hate to say it. And I love Boy Meets World, right? I'm not saying Corey dressed badly. He dressed exactly like a middle school kid, becoming a high school kid during the 90s in the suburbs of Philadelphia, I guess you could say, right? Sweater vests, oversized shirts, rolled jeans, and enough hair product to survive a wind tunnel, right? But when you picture Corey Matthews, you don't immediately look down at his feet. Let's just be realistic, right? You think about Topanga, you think about Sean, you think about Mr. Feeney and how he follows them throughout every school, every educational institution in Philadelphia. How is he doing that, right? The sneakers are something you notice years later when you rewatch the show in high definition. Let's just be realistic, right? But Corey gets the advantage over Brad because I don't like Brad, right? And he appeared in the shoes more consistently. Those Jordan 8s, those Bugs Bunnies, he was wearing them bad boys every day. I know them bad boys was dogged. That's a slang that we use. Dog means your shoes was beat. You know, like they're dirty. You know, like they look crazy. Corey wore those shoes like that. You know, and but like Brad, Corey never presented himself as a sneakerhead. We can't sit and pick and choose. I can't do that. Even though he is ahead of Brad, I can't pick and choose that, and that's why he's number 7, right? Because he was simply a kid meeting the world. We gotta include that he's meeting the world, and he's living through an era where these crazy Jordans come out, and he wears them every episode of one season, right? But that leads us to number 6, right? And on number 6, we're going back to Hillman. Ron Johnson, right? From a different world, right? In part 1, Dwayne Wayne, he ranked 4th because he had that Brooklyn college prep style, right? The button-ups, the sweaters, the flip-up glasses, you know, and those original released OG Jordans, right? Ron was different, I guess. You know, Ron dressed like the college student who always had somewhere to be, but nobody was completely sure whether he actually was enrolled in class. If you guys been to an HBCU in particular, you remember those students, right? Ron was very popular on campus. I think it's safe to say that if you watch this show, you know that, right? And he had the black cement Jordan 4s, the black metallic and grape Air Jordan 5s, right? He had them Nike Air Max 180s. Them Quantum Force lows, you know, and he had the Huaraches, right? Classic shoes, right? Strong 90s collection, right? Ron wore those great 5s in multiple episodes, you know, so it wasn't a one-time appearance for those, right? And unlike Corey and Brad, Ron had enough personality to carry those shoes, right? He wore those colorful tracksuits, the hats, the jackets, and that waistband positioned like it contained every personal business idea he ever pitched to Dwayne. You know, like Ron had more sauce than Corey and Brad combined, right? It's safe to say that, right? And coming up, of course, Ron started out, he ain't had that much money, but he had a little bit of money now. He came from some bread too. His father sold cars, right? But, you know, after Marlon 1 Part 1, we established that, you know, being financially irresponsible can actually strengthen your sneakerhead resume, right? Now, the problem with Ron is, see, his documented rotation is still smaller than the people ranked ahead of him, right? Dwayne's collection also overshadowed his because Dwayne wore several major Jordan models throughout the show, right? Ron had heat, but he was standing next to another character with even more heat. And that makes Ron Johnson number 6. Now, number 5. Eddie Winslow from Family Matters, right? Now, Eddie deserves some respect, you know, because Once in Expensive Shoes was written into his character. In season 1, it was the episode Two Income Family. Eddie asked his father Carl for $70 to purchase some Michael Jordan high tops, right? And that might not sound like much today, but asking your father for $70 for sneakers in 1990, which is equal to $180 in today's money, that was the quickest way to receive a lecture about bills, responsibility, and how the shoes you already owned had perfectly good soles, right? Especially from a father like Carl Winslow, right? And Eddie wore what he wore: the fire red Jordan 3s, the maroon Jordan 6s, them Reebok pumps, them Nike Air Cross Trainer 3 lows, and them LA Gear high tops. All right, I respect the LA Gears now. I really respect the LA Gears. Everybody watching this and anybody on this list, right, cannot pretend like they wore nothing but Jordans every single day. No. Real 90s sneaker culture included Reebok, Fila, right, Adidas, British Knights, and LA Gear. Sometimes you had to wear what your parents was willing to purchase, right? So Eddie's style also mattered, Okay, he was also presented as the cool teenager in the Winslow household, right? He cared about the girls. He was a poon hound, right? He cared about the clothes, the popularity, and looking good, right? When Eddie wore expensive shoes, they supported who his character already was, right? I think it's safe to say that. He wasn't simply an athlete receiving basketball sneakers. Now, see, he wanted those shoes because they really carried social value. That was the God honest truth, right? And that's genuine sneakerhead motivation, right? Eddie stops at number 5 because his collection doesn't have the same depth as the top 4, right? But out of everybody we've covered so far, Eddie is the first person who actually has a desire for sneakers. I guess it's safe to say that. But number 4, Marion Hill in the house, right? And this is where we have to investigate the evidence. See, the graphic presents Marion surrounded by the black cement Jordan 3s, the Lightning and Motorsport Jordan 4s, the cherry and gem red Jordan 12s, and the Jordan 17 lows, right? And the bread Jordan 1s, the OGs, right? The Nike Air Max 95s, those Air Darwins, right? Classic shoes, right? And at first glance, Marion looks unbeatable. But you got to look at that picture close. See, it's LL Cool J. That's one of hip-hop's most original sneaker icons, right? So we have to look at it like this. In the house aired from 1995 until 1999, right? Those Lightning Jordan 4s didn't come out till 2006. You're sneaking shoes on the damn graphic to fit a narrative, okay? We're talking about characters, not LL Cool J as a whole. How dare you? I'm gonna put the actual release dates, right? Of the those Motorsport 4s that's in the graphic. And what is it, the Shishiko 4s and the Gym Red 12s? Those are modern releases, okay? Now, unless Marion Hill had a time machine hidden underneath that staircase, he didn't wear them damn shoes, and I'm not allowing it, all right? We are ranking sitcom sneakerheads, not the actor's personal closet, okay? Now, Marion still had legitimate show era heat, I guess. He wore multiple original Air Max 95 colorways, including the neon and the slate and the comet red. You know, he also wore the Nike Air Darwins, right? And other basketball and training models, right? He had style. You know, he was a former professional football player living in Los Angeles, right? And he wore the casual streetwear. It fit him naturally. Plus, at the time, LL Cool J could make almost anything look fly, right? But once we remove the modern Jordans, you know, his case is less dominant. I'm sorry. You know, but we do respect Marion Hill, and he lands at number 4 on this list, right? Now we're at the top 3. Number 3, the Smart Guy cast. All right, these 3 individuals specifically: T.J. Henderson, Marcus Henderson, and Mo Tibbs. Okay, and yes, we're including all 3. All right, combining 3 sneaker closets gives them an unfair advantage, but oh well, okay? I'm judging them as a collective, all right? I don't care, right? Because TJ didn't own everything. But the show features those Griffey Freshwaters, okay, those Air Hawk flights, the Up-Tempos, the Reebok Big Hurts, the Flu Game 12s. I remember TJ wearing them. And some Reebok Question Mids, those Iversons, right? The pilot episode alone had the Griffey Max 1s and the Reebok Big Hurts, right? You know, Smart Guy came out swinging, all right? And this also wasn't an accident. See, Jason Weaver discussed how Jordan sneakers required, you know, approval, and how him and Omar Gooding pushed for more authentic urban clothing and sneakers, right? And it matters because the shoes, they weren't simply selected by somebody just guessing what young black characters wore. No, the actors helped make sure the wardrobe looked believable at the time, right? So Marcus and Mo dressed like actual late 90s teenagers, right? TJ, he dressed younger and slightly more conservative, right? But, you know, he was a child in high school, and he still had decent shoes. Like I mentioned, he had them Flu Games on that one episode, right? Now, the only reason they don't rank higher is because, once again, we're combining 3 characters. And if you split all of them up, of course, they're not as dominant, right? But as a show and a collective, Smart Guy gets the number 3 spot, right? But now we're at number 2. Number 2, Jamie King from the Jamie Foxx Show. Yeah, Jamie had them Columbia Air Jordan 11s, OG. Y'all remember that episode with crazy ass Orlando, right? Them cobalt Jordan 11 lows, them ginger Jordan 14 lows, right? The Nike Air Flight pauses. I remember Kevin Garnett was on the episode, right? He had the Penny 2s, the leather Air Max 95s. He even had the Adidas bonus lows one episode, right? And that's an excellent late 90s rotation. That's what gets him the number 2 spot, right? But see, what separates Jamie from the most, is the complete outfit, right? Jamie King was trying to become an entertainer. He worked at his family's hotel, right? He performed music. He chased fancy and carried himself like a man who expected to become famous at any moment, right? His clothes had to reflect that confidence. Jamie wore leather jackets, coordinated streetwear, solid colors, and cleaner outfits that allowed the sneakers to stand out. See, he wasn't dressed like a random teenager who happened to have good shoes. No, he was dressed like somebody who cared about their entire presentation, right? He could wear the Penny 2s, the Flight Posits, without the sneaker looking disconnected from everything above them, right? And that's why he beats Corey and Brad and even Eddie. See, Jamie wasn't simply wearing the heat. Jamie was styling the heat. His rotation also represented the transition between like the middle of the 90s and the late 90s. And the sneaker designs changed, right? You had the Flight Pauses. They looked similar to spaceships at the time. The Penny 2s, they had enormous air units on the shoes, right? The Air Max 95s completely changed the shape of running shoes. Like the Jordan 4s, they're literally modeled after a sports car. That's a fact. Like, Jamie wore sneakers that matched the forward-looking energy of a young entertainer trying to reach the next level. He has the collection, the confidence, and the style. But there's still one person whose sneaker game is even more naturally connected to his entire sitcom, right? Number 1, Mark Cooper, hanging with Mr. Cooper, right? The Black Jack Tripper, living with 2 chicks at the same time. He's a former basketball star. He doing his thing with him, but the show don't want to show it, right? He doing his thing with him, right? But we talking about the shoes, right? And Mark wasn't pretending to be connected with the basketball culture. Like I just said, basketball was his foundation. It was the foundation of his character. Come on now. He was a former professional basketball player who became a teacher and a coach at the high school, right? And when Mark wore those basketball sneakers, they didn't feel like product placement. No, it felt like he really owned these shoes. His rotation included those Aqua Air Jordan 8s, those Hair Jordan 7s, the white and black Jordan 9s, the Nike Air Diamond Turfs, of course, the Dions, right? The Air Raids, the Huaraches, Air Force 180s, come on now, Air Magnum Forces, Tech Challenges 4s. Like, come on, man. And they wasn't even retros at the time. That's what's even more crazy. These are OG. He's wearing these when they was really released in real time. Somebody can purchase a Aqua 8 retro because they like the history or saw it on social media. We get it now. Mark Cooper wore those because they were the new Jordans. Understand that, right? The context changes a little bit when you start talking like that, right? And he had range, right? Like, Mark could dress. His style combined with athletic clothing with like the grown man casual wear. I guess it's safe to say that. He could wear warm-up suits and sneakers in the gym, then put on a blazer or a clean shirt, and still have enough energy to live with 2 chicks and, do what he had to do with them, right? That's what makes him the most complete candidate on this particular list, right? On this particular Rushmore of people, I guess we should say, right? Brad and Corey, they wore good sneakers because they were teenage athletes, right? Ron had personality, but a smaller collection, right? Eddie wanted those expensive shoes, but he didn't have Mark's variety, right? Marion, well, you see, they tried to mess up that resume, right? And Marion wore a lot of crazy outfits, too. Crazy outfits. You see that? Crazy outfits, right? But Mark Cooper, he wasn't just somebody wearing good shoes on television. He was a former basketball player wearing the best basketball shoes available during one of the greatest periods in sneaker history, right? That's why Mark Cooper takes the #1 spot. Okay? Random Rants. Like and subscribe.